Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogman, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good? I'm doing well. Giving you my update on North Florida weather. It's warmed up for like 3 days, which is great. I suppose so we'll go back down. What can I say? I'm doing a bunch of stuff that, like I said before, I'm a weather wimp, and I don't know. But anyway, it's good. It's good. I know people have asked me about if I'm going to do the Mardi Gras presentation. Yes, I am going to do the Mardi Gras presentation. I'm going to do a live stream on it. And I'm just looking because everybody say they like those stories because it's like everything. Mardi Gras is the big party time. Everybody thinks it's something recent. Mardi Gras has not even before even New Orleans. It was a time to like the last hurrah before you went into Lent. And like all things, there's people that party, and then there's people that party and kill each other, and a lot of weird stuff for some reason. Too much drink, whatever. Jealousy, the typical stuff while people do away with each other, revenge, you name it. So people want to hear more of these stories of the good old days where you hear about all these like dark things that happen, true crime, etc. around Mardi Gras. And it's really funny because really it's in part the origins, it's a religious observation of, for Christians, before you were going to go into these 40 days of giving up something for Easter, for Lent. But incredible, and also, and I think I spoke about it before, that there's a lot of symbology to the masks balls that were part of Mardi Gras. And a lot of these, what they call crews with a K that they made up, these crews, basically the membership was secret. All right. And sometimes, so you really didn't know unless you were part of the membership who the members were, or sometimes in some cases even what they looked like, depending. But they all had like and if word ever got out, you spilled the beans, you'd be in big trouble. So yeah, this, as a matter of fact, I still think some of the crews that are still around, their membership roster is still like, you cannot talk about it. But anyway, yeah. And like all things, secrets. There's secrets and then there's secrets. So we'll go into that. But anyway, let's get on to the good part. The good part is who is the guest tonight at Stories of the Supernatural. His name is Eric Mintel. He is a professional jazz musician who has performed at the White House, the Kennedy Center, and the United Nations. But by night, he becomes a ghost hunter, traveling around the country with his team of investigators and psychic mediums. He's investigated sightings of ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman, etc. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, Eric?
I am doing phenomenal, Marlene. How are you doing today?
Great. You have to tell me what came first, music or the paranormal? Or was it one because of the other?
Music came first. I mean, my parents, probably my parents could find me at the piano, an only child. So we didn't have much else, but we did have a piano that was halfway in tune. And they could always find me at the piano probably when I was 3 years old. So that definitely came first, and just had a real fascination with the piano, the sounds, and of course then made it a career. And then I found my mentor in jazz was I'm a jazz musician, but my mentor was Dave Brubeck, and a very, very good friend of mine. And so from that point, it was, I made a career out of it, but I've always loved the paranormal. So,
Okay.
growing up we're here in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So
Mm-hmm.
here we have a lot of stories of the
Oh,
supernatural,
yes. Yes, we
lots of
do.
ghost stories. So I grew up listening to all of these incredible stories and always had a fascination. But for years, people always thought I was just the jazz guy, you know?
Right.
Um, yeah. So music came first, then paranormal. And then in 2016 is when I started my show, Eric Mintel Investigates. And
I see.
it's
Okay.
been.
It's really funny because I took piano from the age of 8 till I was 15. There's nothing like teenage years to do it. And you could tell when you just said by 3 years old, you're here. And they put me to do piano classes, like one of those things. Like I liked it, but that's what I'm talking about passion. You're 3 years old and you're, you
Well,
know,
the thing is, I was going. My piano teacher, I only took a year's worth of lessons because in when I was like 14, and
hmm
around that time frame, I found Dave Brubeck's music. I found like Take
okay.
Five, Blue Rondo a la Turk, Three to Get Ready, all of this
hmm
very obscure, difficult music that I'm playing at that point. And my piano teacher at the time is trying to teach me Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So it was
Right.
like I always say I'm a product of reverse engineering, because he was like, I can't really teach you because you're just on another level. But
Right.
so from that point, that was about it. I've had a year's worth of lessons. And then the guys that are with me in my quartet now, we've been together over 20 years. And, being out in the field and playing, it's just become this otherworldly
It
type
was
of
there. It was
like,
it was in your head. And it's so funny because my piano teacher, which I went to once a week, she was like, if I would ask her to do anything modern, it would be like sacrilege,
yeah,
Bach, no
exactly.
Beethoven, or the fugue or the this or the that. But if I would have said, can we go like, yeah, it'd be like, ugh. But anyway, and then along came adolescent, and there goes the piano because by
Yeah.
that time you need a lot of. How's this? When you have to be forced to practice, it's not there,
Well,
whereas it's
then
different.
it doesn't become fun, and that's the thing too.
No,
You have to have, unfortunately, sometimes people get bad teachers that are kind of like, it kind of sours them, on lessons and playing.
mhm.
I've heard a lot of stories like that where people, they just don't have a teacher that has the right amount of patience and whatnot.
No, my
And
teacher, she was great. It was me. It was me.
yeah,
It was me.
and then yeah, and the discipline factor, and
Yes.
and that's the thing. I find and here's the thing, Marlene, I don't read music. I don't read music at all.
Really?
I
Are you
don't
kidding?
I can't even write music, but that's what I use our saxophone player
That is
Nelson Hill.
incredible.
He
Wow.
and Nelson was in Maynard Ferguson's band for years, and so Nelson, he's I always say, he takes what's up here and puts it on paper,
Let me tell you
and
something. I every time that my teacher, she'd take out that metronome, I'd be like, oh crap.
yeah,
You know?
right, right.
But
Exactly.
yeah, that I mean by comparison, and I know when you're born to it, like you just said, it's in here. My poor mom, I was like, and I'm like, I like it, but no, 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 no. And
Well,
of course, as you get more advanced, you need hours of practice, and it'd be like,
oh yeah, yeah. Oh, totally. And my father. The thing is, my father would play piano, and he
uh-huh.
was never. He was completely self-taught, and my mother took 10 years worth of lessons and really didn't play that much. So I think I definitely got a lot of
Okay,
the
you had
improv.
the background.
Yeah, and
It's really funny. We lived in an apartment building. And this was South Florida. This was in Miami. My mom, she would have the window, and I have all these neighbors listening to me. So she's like, "Play more,"
yeah,
and I'm like, "Ah,"
yeah, yeah,
because I had people in the back because it was like an eight apartment thing, and in the back, it was like apartments here and there all around.
you got a ready-made audience.
And but to me, it was like, my mom was like, and they would come, oh, tell her Marlene to play, and I would be like, oh, come on, you know. But
Well, I had.
again, it's one of the but see, I did have something in common with you. It's around that time. I
Oh
tell
yeah,
everybody back originally, Hans Holzer was the paranormal guy way
yep.
back when, and then later on they did other shows. But I was always kind of fascinated with the subject, even though a lot of his stuff was like historical stuff up in the Northeast, New England
Oh,
area,
oh yeah.
and
So you mentioned earlier that people like to party, and then there's people that like to party. So
yes.
my father was one of those people that liked to party, which was back
Okay.
back in the 70s. So he would wake me up when I was playing Blue Rondo and all this stuff. He'd wake me up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to come
Right.
out to play for his friends that he brought home. And that kind of like I always think to myself, that kind of like gave me like that performing bug too, kind of like, because
Yes.
you like to perform. But yeah, it's music has been like a very strong factor. And a lot of times I don't even know, like, improvisation wise, like we're doing now, having a conversation.
Right.
um, Improvisation in jazz is something that it happens on the spot. And
Right.
it's part of the listening factor.
Imagine your ear, you hear
Oh,
stuff, and
there's the senses are going at all times,
yes.
and it's a beautiful thing. And I would say too that it goes into the paranormal realm too, because
Hmm.
when we have our mediums go into some of these places, see, I don't feel what they feel. I don't have those kind of feelings where
Hmm.
they'll go in and pinpoint those spots that are some of the hot spots, but they could go in. But it's a similar type of feeling where you've got, wow, there's something going on here, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden, you know how it is. There's a story then that starts unfolding.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
amazing.
And I've told everybody, because I've done paranormal investigations shoot since the 90s. And I tell everybody, and when I started doing it, there wasn't so much thing with the equipment like there is now. Like there's got
Yeah.
a camera for this and the FLIR and the this and back then it was a lot. But like you said, you trained your body. Even the person that wasn't psychic, after a while, when you do this, your body, you become like in other words, there was a lot of times either me or somebody on the team would feel something, and then if the equipment was there, it would go off. In other words,
Yep.
you knew something. I tell everybody, my biggest thing was I always knew, because if once you do this work a lot, and I'm not talking here residual stuff. I'm talking here, it always announces itself somehow.
Hmm.
When something's going to materialize, whatever it is, it might not,
Right.
there's always like an announcement, something that you feel like, oh, this wasn't here a minute ago. This,
Yeah.
like your body, like the human body is a great instrument, and it's my
Oh,
point.
it's a total conductor for sure.
Yes,
And
yes.
and just to back up a little bit, when I started my investigations,
Hmm.
we live in this great area, and it's very, very rich in history. We've got a lot of
Yes.
underground railroad activity here, a
Hmm.
lot of houses, a lot of ghost stories. And then in 2008 here in Bucks County, we had a huge UFO flap, which
Okay.
also I interviewed a guest of mine for my interview show as well, Steve Allen, who was the first guy that came out with citing the Stevensville, Texas UFO. So, and
Okay.
that made huge news. So, I talked to him, and so around that time we had a huge UFO flap here. And then fast forward to just last year, we were having another flap here, which we were able to get on video. But beyond that, it's like UFOs,
Oh
Bigfoot,
yeah.
believe it or not, right here in Bucks County. There's been a lot of sightings
Yes.
here. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that Pennsylvania is a hot spot, let me tell you.
And a lot of people think that a lot of cryptids are out west. I don't think that's necessarily the
No.
case. I mean, you had a lot of those fires too the last couple of years out in
Yes.
California. I think a lot of the cryptids maybe migrated back
Yeah.
east, to get away from there. Um,
Yes.
so we started this started the investigations and have done it all. And then my paranormal partner in this, Dominic Sattel, he and I went to high school together, and
Okay.
practiced martial arts and stuff years ago. And then he got married. I had gotten married, and we just, life went in different directions. About 29 years later, he came
Wow, there
back
you go.
into the fold, and he said to me, he's like, I might be able to help you on your investigations. I'm a medium. And I'm like, what? You never told me this. Like all
Okay.
the time that I knew that. So he told me, and it's great having him on the investigations, because he's kind of like giving us a preview of what we're in store for. Because a
Right.
lot of times, and you've done this too, I'm sure, where you
Hmm.
go into a location, and I talk to the owners of a particular venue, restaurant, bed and breakfast, whatever, and they'll tell me the history, and then I keep that all to myself because I know kind of where everything is happening in that
Right.
place. And then when Dominic comes in, and it's great to get it on camera to where he goes to all those little hot spots, right? And
Right.
we have another psychic medium that we work with, Julie Krause. She is another one that goes right to those spots. And the other thing, Marlene, you mentioned all the gadgetry and stuff. We don't use that. We
Oh
don't
yeah,
use
no. Oh,
we don't use spirit boxes, nothing like
right.
that.
Personally, I'm not in favor of it. It's
No, I mean they're I mean it's okay for like entertainment value, but it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
they tend to give you a false reading on a lot of stuff because
You
it's
end up
gonna
paying more attention to the equipment than to observing, is
yeah,
in my experience.
and then the cameras that you're using set off those things as well.
Yeah,
So it's hard to, but when we're using the mediums, that's the best test right there. And EVPs, we do use those,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then magnetometer,
Yes.
because that
For EMF, if you get an EMFs,
oh
yeah.
yeah,
And
we
that's a good,
bring
you know what? I understand that there's basic stuff that's okay to use, but sometimes you see like, and exactly what you say. I know that it's for entertainment purposes, but in real
right.
life, some of those things get in the way because you end up unless and even then you see in these shows that basically have a tech guy running the stuff.
Right,
So
and it's a lot. I mean, and then it's going to pick up a CB radio or something
yeah,
in the
yeah.
too. But one of the things that really, one of our investigations, which we're still wrapping our heads around, was our investigation of a cryptid, which I'm sure most of your listeners will be familiar with, was the Beast of Bray Road out
Yes,
in
absolutely.
Elkhorn, Wisconsin.
Yeah,
I
Linda Godfrey.
Linda Godfrey really brought this
Mhm.
prominence in the early 90s, but it's been around for like since the early like
Yes.
mid 30s. So it was crazy when we went out there. I had seen a program called Paranormal Declassified, and they had done a segment on that with Lee Hample on
Mhm.
a farm in Elkhorn, where he's been getting a lot of this activity. Well, Lee, it's just that after I saw that show, I said, man, this guy seems like he's very easy to approach. Let me give him a call. So I called him that night. I found his number on the internet because it was like he had a
Okay.
website set up for that. And we talked for 2 hours. And he was talking about all this evidence. He was sending me pictures and all kinds of stuff that he's of the creature, videos, these weird UFO lights, and going through the trees and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's incredible how really
Oh my
the
God,
cryptid UFO things have overlapped. People before thought they were totally separate,
totally, totally.
and they're not.
Oh, they're not totally. I think there's a major connection. There's still the Bigfoot guys sometimes are on the fence about the Bigfoot UFO connection, but I think they're kind of getting to that also. The other thing is too, we have another theory that we're working with too, that could Bigfoot be a ghost? That was another idea.
Yeah.
Why is it seen and then all of a sudden it disappears?
Inter or intra-dimensional being.
Yeah,
I mean I know that's a theory that everybody is like, why? Just like Bigfoot, all of a sudden it's there and then it's not there, and
right. Or
uh,
you know how it is too, where you could be seeing something, right? And at the end of the day, I always say that people are seeing something. But
mhm,
sometimes you could be standing there with somebody, they're seeing something, but you
mhm.
can't see it. You just, for
Right.
whatever reason, that's happened a lot, but there is something there. Now they're doing some experiments on light spectrum, like in the daytime.
Yes.
You might not be able to see these orbs during the day, obviously, but during the night, there's maybe a filter or something. That's why you see a lot of things on that night vision that are
Mhm.
not necessarily there in the daytime, obviously. But
Yes.
when we were on Lee's property, Marlene, let me tell you, we got out there and we did and let me just preface this by saying I had heard of the Beast of Bray Road, and
Mhm.
I didn't really put too much into it. I knew that we were going to be getting this great documentary, and I have to mention that one of our fans,
Mhm.
Ellen Collins, actually made this video happen. That she brought us out there and paid the freight for everything for us to do this documentary, and she was in it as well. And so we get out there, and this is October of 2021, and
Okay.
we got out to Lee's, and we went in the field, and we did like reconnaissance in the field. And Ellen's son Scott was with us, and he was our drone operator and camera operator. But he wears virtual reality glasses when he's doing the drone, right? Because they're very
Okay.
drones. So we're in the field going over to the area that Lee's had all this activity. And Scott says we disappeared off of his screen
Wow.
in this area of the field. And
Uh-huh.
then he had to take the glasses off to see. We were there. I mean, we were there. But
Right.
in his vision, we were gone. So there was something there that we were there. There was some kind of thing there. Could it be a
Yes.
portal? I don't know. You know, that was the one thing.
Right.
But what happened later on that night made it all the more like, wow, there is definitely something going on here. So that happened, and we had a lot of electronic disturbances happening. We had a lot of activity down in this area. So the night of the investigation, we go down there, and we thought we'd have to scrub the whole thing because it looked like it was going to rain.
Okay.
And we're in Lee's barn, and it's about 8:30. And Lee is showing us all these pictures. He's got thousands and thousands of pictures. So he's showing us hair samples under the microscope that under the microscope are translucent.
Mm-hmm.
There's no medulla. There was just all these weird pictures. So I said to Lee, Lee, can we do a night investigation in the field back there? And he said, absolutely. And that's what we were there for, because we wanted to do that.
Right.
So, and it's a 35-acre hayfield. So if you could picture this, it's like a big rectangle. So the hayfield's a big rectangle. And at that time, the corn was up on either sides of the field.
Okay.
So it's about, it's a little bit of a hike to get out there. So we got on these ATVs, on the motorcycles, and went out to the area. And so we get out to this area, and we're there no sooner than 5 minutes. Dominic looks up and goes, "What the hell is that?" And here we looked up, and it was a solid orb of light. But we also looked up, and we also noticed that over the field that we were in, it was completely clear, whereas before it looked like it was really cloudy. And you could see it. You could see it. All of what I'm going to tell you is in this video. But we looked up there, and here we see the solid orb of light just going over the field, and you could see other planes around. Around. And all of a sudden, we're still trying to look to see what the hell this is. And it does a little 45-degree angle and disappears. It blinks right out.
What?
That was one. That was the first thing. We had a trifecta of paranormal activity that night. Then the second thing we had happen was we heard these howls. So there was
my God.
In the distance, very long in the distance. And then we're looking at each other. Second howl was closer. And these were not coyote howls. This was something else. The third howl, and I'm sure you've heard it too, it was like to me, it sounded like a man screaming in this field that we were in. It was this low, guttural scream, growl, yell combination. So we hear this, and we're like, oh, SH, So we're
like, hey, maybe we should listen from inside the car.
Yeah, right. So we're like, wow, so right there, when I heard that changed my whole perspective on what is out there. And then because it said to me, my God, this thing is here. So we could not believe it. And we got it on video. And the weird thing is, not weird thing, but the thing is, we had little lavalier, tiny microphones on. Right? It was that loud that it picked it up on this.
The lavalier had picked it up. Wow. That's pretty good. That's pretty loud.
It was close too. It was close. And Ellen thinks that it was coming in on us. But we're standing there like, and look, we're standing there like we have no protection. We had like a flashlight.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay,
we have a flashlight and a radio, and that's it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the second thing. Then the third thing was the weirdest thing was this weird mist that came up from the field that we were in. So this mist was another thing that we called an electronic fog. Because it was messing with our electronics. It was you could hear our mics kind of cutting in and out. And then the fourth thing that happened after we got out of there, this is like within a half hour, we're out of there.
Okay.
We got it. People are like, why didn't you guys stay? We didn't have any protection. And I wasn't going to stick around because what made me say, let's get out of here is Scott. We said, Scott, shine the light over to that corn area where we heard the howl coming from. Now, the Beast of Bray Road is supposed to be a 6 to 7 foot tall dogman, werewolf-like creature, right? So we shine the light over there and we look, and about 7 feet up in the corn, we see eyes going like this.
You know what? This is like the beginning of a great horror flick. What you're describing, I imagine you must have been like, you know what? This is real life, but yeah.
That's what I just said to the guys.
Those hunters meet the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah, right. I said, look, man, our safety is more important than any investigation here. So let's get the hell out of here. And that's what we did. We went back. Lee couldn't believe we were back so quick. And but man, we got back, and then the weird thing was the entire town of Elkhorn lost power that night. It
Wow.
was so, it was just a weird weekend. And then Dominic said, I looked at my hotel room floor and I had a stick that I brought back.
Right.
And Dominic's like, you brought it back with you, didn't you? But man, it was just so weird. That, I mean, just that is one story.
Let
Then,
me
yeah,
let me
crazy.
tell you something. That's incredible that and I smiled because people don't realize that there are times like that that right from the moment you're there, stuff starts happening.
Yeah. I say that, I always say that I think Dominic is like the magnet with these things, because a lot of times within 15 minutes, something's going to happen. And it's
Okay.
nothing, and it's nothing that we're even looking for, and like I have to say too, I go into a lot of these things skeptically, whereas I
Yeah,
always, like in the ghost situation, I'm like, well, what's really going on here? Are people hearing pipes in the basement heating up, or are they hearing like
exactly.
animals on the roof or something, or they're hearing people outside that's sounding like a disembodied voice? What so I try to keep it, in I try to keep all channels open that way, and but having said that, and then having caught what we caught on camera, I'm really becoming a believer in there's a really thin veil from here to there, and and people are seeing something. That's the whole thing.
You know what? And this is the thing, and my audience has heard it before. A few years ago, I interviewed this gentleman. He's already passed away. He had been running the Alabama Bigfoot Society since the 1970s.
Mm,
And he would tell me that after a while, people would have these sightings because he lived like in rural Alabama of Bigfoot or something that people thought. They would call the police, and the police are like, we can't do anything, like, okay. So the police would end up taking these people so they could share the stories. And he told me, he goes, Marlene, I don't know what they saw, but I can tell you these people believed they had
oh
seen
yeah.
something, you
we
know?
oh, you know how it is too when you're talking to somebody. you can
Yes.
you can and I'm pretty good at discerning the BS from the truth. And when I've interviewed people, when their voices are cracking, they're like very scared. As far as,
Yes.
you
Uh-huh.
can't fake that kind of stuff, and
They're
it's
not
so
faking, like whether they saw what there's something there that scared them so bad
exactly.
that. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if when you were out in Wisconsin, Linda Godfrey, this was a while back, she spoke to this guy named Frank Arnold, who
Hmm.
has, I don't know if he has or had a farm out in rural Wisconsin. They had dug up, when you were saying how far back this thing goes with the Beast of Bray Road, they had dug up on his farm they looked like originally what they were pedestals for a porch, but they found them, they were repurposed. They were like buried and they dug them up. And
Right.
basically they're called wolfenstones. And they had the face of wolves like on a decoration, like something that you would maybe hold the porch or your entrance.
Yep.
And I mean, she goes into it, but like how far back and I think the building that they originally was built in the 1920s or turn of
Wow.
the century. That far back, like why would you have wolf's face? Like, and the way she described it wasn't just the wolf's face. It's almost like you want to have like a little bit of a human aspect to it.
Right. Exactly.
A foot, they were like a foot and across, a foot by foot by foot, on each side they had that wolf head.
Well, there's
And
been, yeah, I mean, there's also like Indian burial grounds out there too that
yes.
they've also seen this creature at. So here's the thing, Marlene, when all of that, you're hitting the nail on the head here, because we went back in April of
Okay.
2022 to do a follow-up. And
Uh-huh.
Ellen brought us out there again. So we did this follow-up. Now, we didn't experience it this time. We didn't experience
Okay.
it. We didn't encounter it. But what we did get was unbelievable. We had a town hall meeting, which brought
Okay.
in over 144 people
Okay.
that told their story of seeing this creature.
Wow.
And they all described this thing the same way. And it's when it's on two legs, it's like it's
Yes.
gliding. When it's on all fours, it's very fast. But it
Okay.
looks on two legs, it looks like it's gliding when it walks. That's the descriptions that these people are giving. Then come to find out later, out here in Bucks County area, well, it's in Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania.
Right.
There's another story called the Beast of Bryn Athyn. So
Really? I never
it's
heard of that.
another dog man out here. So we did a video on that as well and talked to some.
Okay.
So I mean, all of the stuff, there is, I mean, the stories are infinite. but so is the answer. Like we try to get that definitive, like, what is it? And that's the whole thing with paranormal. It's like infinite. You never really get. We're getting closer, but you never really get, like, what is it? What are we hearing that?
Right. You think, okay, is this an animal, like in flesh and blood?
Right.
Is this something, like you said, spirit, supernatural aspect? What is it?
I know. We just had a presentation in the middle of this month, and we played that clip of the Beast of Bray Road, and the guy out in the audience is saying, "Well, that's a coyote. That's a coyote." Like it wasn't a coyote. Believe me, it was not a coyote, because coyotes pitch. This didn't pitch. This was just monotone. And so people are sometimes, they weren't there. I was on site. They weren't. And this thing, and we listened to all kinds of sounds. I mean, we listened to elk, owls, foxes, all kinds, and nothing matched it.
Yes. And what you hear, this people that are hunters or outdoorsmen that, they've said stories that they're very familiar with animal sounds where they live at.
Right.
And they all say exactly what you just said. I know this was not a coyote or whatever. Okay. Yep. This was like unlike anything I've ever heard before. This is not like some green guy that went out camping and heard something and got scared.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's people that have been saying, no, what I heard was something I've never heard before that scared them really bad.
It was insane. So that was the thing that really, at that point I was like, oh my God, that changed my whole perspective on the Dogman situation. There are people that are, in our research too, even like with ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot, I'm thinking that sometimes some people are connected to these entities somehow, whether it's ghosts or whatever, but because I think they're also picked to experience these things or see these entities. And that was like, a week after we got back from Elkhorn, we went and did an investigation of Bigfoot in the New Jersey Pine Barrens.
Okay, the Pine Barrens, wow.
And had an encounter there.
You did? What happened?
It was insane. So we're sitting there, and so we were there with two Bigfoot researchers, Eric Spinner and Art Mack, and they've been doing a lot of research in the field on a lot of there's been a lot of juvenile Bigfoot sightings in the Pine Barrens. Okay. Juvenile, so obviously there's families there, right? Right. So there is tracks. Eric has gotten a lot of like a plaster cast of the tracks, hair samples, all kinds of weird stuff, pictures, photos. So we're there and we're sitting at base camp, and Art and Eric are telling us about their protocols, about, how they go about their research, what they do, what they bring. So as Dominic's talking to Art, he's sitting there talking, and we all heard it because we're all sitting there, but the camera was on just Art and Dominic. We all heard a whoop coming from the woods. Now, when I see those Bigfoot shows, sometimes I have to chuckle, because I say, is that what they really sound like? Because it kind of sounds, it's funny, Yeah,
you hear like the bark. What was it when they hit the bark against?
Oh, like, right. They do the tree.
And I don't know. But you hear some things that it's like, that could be anything. And other times you hear stuff like, if I heard that and I was in the woods,
I know,
I'd be like,
you'd be out of there. So, but of course we're there again with no protection. But so anyway, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we hear this whoop in the background, right?
Yeah.
And we heard it, and Eric had some high-powered microphones that actually picked it up even louder. So with that, why I'm saying we had this encounter is because Eric's wife, Heather, she goes and answers it back. She goes whoop like that, and it comes back, and they're going and having a conversation back and forth like that. So as this thing is whooping back, it sounded like it was going further away. Then suddenly we heard all of this big rustling sound behind us. Now keep in mind, it's pitch black. We don't even know what's going on behind us. So we hear this rustling sound, and then we didn't hear it anymore. But that was amazing, and we got it all on tape. All of this stuff that I'm telling you is on 2 videos.
Let me tell you something. This is the thing about Bigfoot. You hear stories, and I think that they go through this, I don't know, this season where they get very territorial.
Migratory.
or like either whether I don't know if you want it's the mating season or something. And usually the people that have the scarier encounters that they get stuff thrown at them and stones,
Right.
it's almost like you want to say like they're something's going on that they want you out of there.
Absolutely. I totally
You
agree.
know,
I totally agree.
it's
And
like
that
get your stuff and get out of here.
and
You know,
that's
I'm
what that
not
yeah, and that's how I felt in Elkhorn. That's what
okay.
it was telling us, look, this is my territory, get out of
Yes.
here. And that was it. I said I wasn't going to mess with that. We're out of
No.
there. Pay it some
Well,
pay
you
it,
know, to
no.
some animals, I tell everybody, you know, you might not have any idea, but let me tell you something. In the animal kingdom of the mating season, all
Right.
animals, I tell everybody, I have exotic birds. I know my exotic birds are going to be mating and having babies. When I
Yeah.
try to put my hand in there and they try to bite the out of my finger, and they're
Yeah.
birds. But
Yeah.
my point is that in the animal kingdom, that mating, having offspring, animals become ferocious,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. And
Yeah. For
you know
sure.
what? Because I don't practice, I'm not a hypnotherapist anymore, but for many years, and even before that, since I had my center, I had people sending me emails of weird stuff. You'd be surprised some of the stories that people would call me, and I had people even calling me because they had seen stuff
Hmm.
and they would be calling me as a hypnotist because they let me tell you something, it really did a number on their head.
Oh, I bet.
They
I
couldn't
bet.
sleep.
Yeah.
This is where people had actually seen stuff. They where their reality shifted. They were not the person they were before the event.
Right. Exactly.
And you know, like when you can't unsee something.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, definitely.
And there
We're
was
we're
like, you know,
we're dealing
some of the
we're
stories I heard from people, and mostly they were referrals, and you know, some of them were over the phone. I had, you know, most of my clients they came in person, but some people I spoke to over the phone because basically a lot of these people they were people that were not anxious. How's that? Were having going through anxiety months, you know,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
of what they had seen that this broke their what's the how can you know where we all operate within this
Yeah.
paradigm of
Oh,
what we
sure.
think is possible.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. I mean,
then everything stopped when they had that sighting of whatever it
they
was
had
that
an
they saw.
encounter. Yeah. And that's the thing too, a lot of people that, that we've talked to in that realm, they really had like Lee at the farm. He had no interest in the paranormal whatsoever.
Yes.
But when this thing presented itself to him one night, it was like, oh my God, the
Let me ask
story's
you something. So
true.
what happened? This thing came on his property. He actually saw it?
So yeah, that's why this whole thing happened was back in I think he said it was 2013. He had been farming there. He bought the farm I think in 2007, and he didn't get on there starting to farm into 2011, and then
Okay.
in 2013, some neighbors told him, "Oh yeah, by the way, Lee, that's where the creature lives back there." So
What
and
creature?
Lee,
What?
yeah, Lee's property it's crazy because you have Bray Road, which is right there. So
Right.
Lee's property or his farm is 2/10 of a mile from Bray Road.
Wow.
So when we did this investigation too, we had Scott do the drone above Bray Road, and
Okay.
it's clear as a bell. There was a huge cutout in the corn going from Lee's property all the way over across Bray Road and boom, all across into the other part of the corn. And it was
Oh,
big. I mean, it was big. It was not like it was bigger than a deer would go in there. Let's put it that.
right.
It was big. So, and there was no kinds of vehicles or anything that would drive in there. So, yeah, so
Let me tell you.
so he saw it that one night, and he said it had this glowing red eyes that he was pulling out of his property, and this thing's just staring at him, glowing red eyes, and it jumped 50 feet and disappeared like that.
And he
And
must have been like, oh crap.
he freaked out. He freaked out. I mean, he called his brother Fred. They went back the next day and looked at the
Uh-huh.
tracks. They found a 7-pad track. There's nothing that has 7 pads. 5
No.
toes, 7 pad, or I'm sorry, 5 pad, 7 toe track. It was insane.
Let me tell you, life must have never been the same again for them.
No,
Because
and
had
then of course, a lot of the TV shows wanted to talk to him and stuff like that. And he's been doing
yes.
stuff there, but he's still getting activity. I mean, I want to get back out there again and do some kind of another because he's getting a lot of those screams and the growls happening again. So there is definitely something there, but we just don't know what it is.
Yes. And you know what? It's really funny because every time you say the cornfields, I think of Jeepers Creepers, and it's like, oh my God,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But it's but and it makes you wonder, what is it? Because you see it as Bray Road, as a road, but maybe there's something significant as far as that area for them, for these whatever they are.
That's one of the things I think we have to look into a little bit further, is that the history, the lore. And
Yes.
I always say that there is a little bit of truth to the folklore all the time.
Yes, of course.
And so right now we're in production with a bunch of videos right now, but we're actually working with a vampire museum, believe it or not, over here in Bucks County. It's phenomenal. It's called the Vampa Museum, and they have incredible. He's got over 750 vampire killing sets.
Wow. Not too long ago they had one up for auction.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw it. I wasn't Sotheby's, but it was apparently like the turn of the centuries.
Yeah.
People, this was after Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Right.
There were people that had that
Oh,
their kit.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing with this museum too. There's a real great delineation from Bram Stoker's Dracula to what vampires really are. And it's all about, demonic oppression, demonic possession. So he has, and Ed Crimmy is the curator, a great guy. And we've been having a lot of fun doing a lot of the investigations. But I'll tell you what, man, we just did a couple of weeks ago, a couple of Mondays ago, the 8th of January, we did an investigation, and it's part of the series that we're doing. We all collectively heard this weird growl in the barn, and I caught it on tape. I could not. So it's something is in there, and Julie and Dominic were there at that night too.
But this is the barn. Where's this barn located at?
This is at the Vampa Museum.
And maybe I didn't realize that the property has a barn. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, it's a big property, beautiful antiques. I mean these are very like 17th, 18th century antiques, beautiful stuff. But he has a barn where he's got a lot of the items that people can look at.
And you heard a growl in there?
Oh God, it was the weirdest thing, man. And we were all of us were like, okay, let's get out of here. But we're going back because Monday we're going to do some more footage because we want it. Because Dominic tells me that night, which I didn't realize this, he had heard the same growl in the museum. So we're going back to the museum and figuring out where he heard it, and then we're going to try to see if we can get it on video. So this is what happens.
Let me ask you. I want to interrupt you real quick because I'm writing an article. It just happens that I'm writing an article on this right now, that in certain parts of Pennsylvania, the Dutch people that they believed in the hexes and curses, and they took this very seriously.
Oh, totally.
It was like that you could have a witch, could be a neighbor or anybody, but these people, the belief was like, it was like that the horseshoe and all these traditions were it wasn't like, oh, you're so superstitious. Everybody believed in this, and they took it very seriously.
Well, you see those Pennsylvania Dutch symbols, right? Sometimes on houses, and there are things to ward off evil spirits. That's the whole thing. So it's I always say there's why I love the paranormal so much is there's just it's fascinating me. It's just fascinating, but it's also, people have no clue sometimes what's in their own backyard, right?
No.
They don't, like, there could be a venue that they've been passing by for years that has this great history that nobody knows about. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're telling those stories, and it's just been a lot of fun doing that.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then we do events for some of these places too, and they're packed to the rafters because people have come out, and it's been really, really cool that way. And
what? This is the thing and I'm glad a lot of, everybody has, the so-called famous haunted places, the hospital, the asylums, the prisons. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them, because of what took place within those walls, pretty sure. But you'd be surprised. A lot of, and especially if it was an older place where not everything was documented like it is now, people could, bury a body in the backyard. How's that, for lack of a better word?
It's
skullduggery, where you could have a real heavy duty haunting going in, like what you just said. Some run of the mill place that you never thought twice.
Exactly.
anything was going on there, and it does have
And it
something
does.
going
Oh
on
yeah.
there.
One of the first videos we did was a place called the Wedgwood Inn in New Hope, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And here, Carl and Nadine, the owners, they're great people. They're great people. They bought it in 1982. In 1999, he was wondering. He was putting an addition on the residence, and he's wondering, why is my foundation crumbling in right here? So he
God, you're
goes in
kidding.
and looks, and here there was a tunnel, a 17-foot underground railroad tunnel under the house
Oh my God.
that they
Wow.
had been walking on for, which blew me away.
Yeah.
They were walking on for 17 years and never knew it was there. It was crazy. So they've made it now part of the attraction of the house. But it was there, complete with an escape hatch and a secret stairway to go down into it.
Yes. Yes.
So we talked about that, and then they had some ghosts that have been seen there as well. But stories like that happen all the time.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, people don't realize around the time of Prohibition, with all the bootlegging, those tunnels were used for a lot of stuff.
Well, we live right down the road from where Washington crossed the Delaware.
Okay.
So, you have a lot of the Delaware was where the escaped slaves would go to go north, So there's a lot of stories about that. My father was one of the reasons why I got into paranormal so much was my father would tell me all these stories that he had heard coming up. And he was into all the paranormal stuff, and he had a little bit of that sixth sense too, where he could see, he could foresee. He kept saying one year, this is back in the early 70s or maybe mid 70s, we were in a house and he had kept having this dream that he saw the road in front of the house was all white. It was just white. And he kept having this dream. So, well, one night, at 3:00 in the morning, we get a knock on the front door. Here it's a truck driver that has an overturned truck that just spilled milk on the road.
See, that's incredible. I love those stories. I
Yeah.
love those stories.
And he had,
contrary to what everybody thinks, it doesn't have to be something like horrible, but there's that.
Yeah.
How would your dad, of all things, believe? Where'd you could come up with that?
How would he know that? Right. And then, I lost him 2 years ago, but he would tell this other story, and even on his deathbed, I said, Dad, did this happen? So back in, I guess it was maybe the mid 70s, he had come home one night, and he came home late. It was the 70s. Let's face it. It was like, but he came home, but he swears he was stone sober this night, and he had a habit of cooking a steak on the grill, right on this little hibachi we had. So we had a house that we were renting at the time, where we're right here, and it's called River Road. And then maybe about quarter of a mile is the river, is Delaware River. So again, Washington crossing the Delaware River. So we have a clean view of the river. He's sitting there cooking the steak, and all of a sudden he looks over and he says he sees this woman in white floating down the river, and saying, like, she turned to him from, like, I don't know, a quarter of a mile away or more. And when she turned to look at him, her face came right up to his face.
Oh boy.
And then she turned away, and it went back on the river and floated down. And she kept saying, and he could hear it echoing, saying, I'm going home. I'm going home. And it was just like echoing through the valley. And he just swears that happened to this day, and he's like, yeah, that happened. I saw that. I myself had my own, I always say it's a guardian angel story. Okay. And this is the weirdest thing that happened. And honest to God, so this is back in like February of 1997. I'm going. It's dark, and it's February. It's dark. It's a little wet out, and it's a little cold. So all of a sudden, I'm going down this road. All of a sudden, a deer runs out in front of me, and bam, I hit it. I'm like, oh my God. I felt so terrible. I was like, I never had that happen. And so I hit this thing, and it's like, and both of us, the deer and my car, we're all just sliding together, right? Slide like at least 60 feet, right? So slid, I got out of the car. There's the deer, dead as a doornail. And I'm just I'm looking at this thing, and I felt terrible.
You deer killer, you.
I know, right? But I was like, so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, God, what the hell happened? So then with that, I hear a woman's voice coming out of the woods saying, "How's your hands?" Being a piano player, I'm like, "What?"
Right.
So
Okay.
I turn around and hear this woman all in white comes out of the woods, takes this 200-pound deer like it's nothing, and drags it off the road. And then she goes, "You better get in your car and get off the road." And I got my car and left. I couldn't. When you see, the best way I could describe it is if you see somebody in your car, like if a car headlights are facing you and someone's
Right.
standing in those lights, you see that
Yes.
blurry. You're right. That's what
Yes.
she looked. That's what she looked like. And then I left, and I told the guys on the gig what happened. They were like blown away. I went back the next day, and the deer's gone. And
Okay.
I thought maybe there were houses back there. Maybe that somebody spooked this deer. That's what
Right.
happened.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
No houses. No houses. There was
Wow.
nothing there. And I was like, my God, what the hell? And that was just so wild. And it was just, I
Can you
remember.
imagine? That is such a great story because this is like, and you're like, okay, you want the deer?
Yeah.
Take it. Like, okay.
Yeah. It was, and that totally happened. And it was just so
Let me tell you
weird.
that I appreciate that because where I live, especially now, whenever I go traveling, because I'm very close to the Ocala National Forest.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you something. And you, especially at night, you got to put almost like, you got to be like, you will see them right there on the side of the road and they
Oh,
can
yeah.
really mess up your car.
Oh, yeah. You got to have your head in a swivel all the time.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I know what that's like, what you're talking about. I'd feel horrible if I did something, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know what that's like that. But if somebody came out of the woods, I'd be like, oh my God.
Oh, it was very weird, man. I was like,
That is good.
I didn't get scared. I wasn't scared, but I was more like, who is this?
Let me ask
Like,
you, now that you say Pennsylvania, are you close to, and I'm sorry, because I not sure what's close to what about that. There was a guy, this was not a ghost story, but about the guy that had his face melted off, the Green Man tunnel.
I don't know. I'm in Bucks County, so I'm on the eastern half of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I'm like nowhere near Gettysburg or anything like that.
Well,
so,
no. What this was this, the story was this kid, when he was a kid, he was playing with his friends by the railroad track. Somehow or other, he got electrocuted.
wow.
And he didn't die, but he went like blind. It like melted his face and everything. So he was known for going walk. He looked really disfigured. In other words, it was very sad. But he grew up. But he would go walking down. I guess where they lived, it was kind of rural, and he was. And after a while, people got to know him, and they would. What was his name? Some Charlie No Face or something like that.
Wow.
And people would go out there just to see him, and a lot of. But usually he would just bump cigarettes off of you and tell you some stories and and stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah, there's a lot of history like that. Are you, again, I'm sorry about my ignorance. Are you close to Kecksburg where they had the UFO sightings?
I'm not. I'm about probably 4 hours east of Kecksburg. But no, yeah, I know. Well, I know Stan Gordon, who did that.
Yes, I was about to ask you. I still understand.
Yeah,
and he was saying that they had done like I guess since he's tracked it, that there was like an area about 300-mile radius where there was uptick of UFOs, uptick of cryptid sightings.
Yeah. Oh yeah. In 1973, it was a lot of Bigfoot UFO sightings. Oh, for sure.
Yes.
And that's still happening, apparently. I mean, he's got reports all the time that stuff's going on out there.
Yes.
We went out to Dominic and I Dominic always laughs about this. I dragged him out to Newcastle, Pennsylvania, to investigate the haunted Hillview Manor out there. It's 85. It was, it used to be a poor farm where people would, it was sad, where people would drop off their children that they didn't want anymore.
Yeah. Widows, anybody that couldn't.
Yeah. And it was like 85,000 square feet. So this place is huge.
That's huge.
And we went in there and it was just insane. And that's out near, Pittsburgh.
What's the name of it again?
It's Haunted Hillview Manor.
Hillview. I gotta look that up. I haven't.
And it's a video. We did a video for them too. It's on our YouTube channel. But yeah, it's like, oh my God. So that place was off the charts. I mean, it was
did it ever become an asylum? Because that's what happened to a lot of these poor houses.
Oh,
it did, right? They
Oh, it
turned it
was.
into an asylum. Okay.
Yep, for sure. And it was, and some of the stories were really, really sad there, but we
Yes.
captured some really weird stuff on that investigation.
Oh, I
So
bet. Oh, those
yeah,
places is like,
and we, so that's the thing. We even want to go out to Kecksburg to talk with Stan, get on site, try to do an episode out there.
yes,
But yeah, we've got, it just the stories are plenty. Let me tell you, there's so many
yes,
things going on, and now you've got the Las Vegas aliens that happened a couple of months back in July.
yes,
Then you've got
yes.
the aliens at the Miami airport or at
Oh
the
my God, that's another one that I tell everybody. I was called some people up, and I tell everybody I'm torn because nowadays people could do wonderful things with videos. But then another
oh,
part of me is okay. I know that if a bunch of police are not going to respond to nothing, because the
right,
first one on scene would have raised the dispatcher and said, "Tell everybody to go back. There's nothing
yeah.
out here," or with some kids messing around or whatever.
It
You
looks like
know,
they had over 200 police cars there. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm like, "What?" That was City of Miami PD who went out there.
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking to myself, something, I don't know what it is, but something happened out there.
Something happened, and we haven't really got. And of course, then of course you get the videos of what was in the mall, and there's a lot of CGI stuff there. So then it becomes like, what's really going on? Then it
Exactly.
ruins it for everybody.
Sure. And
You know,
then it's like, was it made up? Or, how can I say it gets too it's embroidered. They add too much to it, and
right?
nobody believes it, but there is some truth to it. And that's the part that you miss out on, that maybe it was a little bit exaggerated because you know how when people
Yes,
retell stuff,
yeah, no,
but that
totally,
there was some truth maybe at some point or maybe initially to what was
yeah,
seen.
yeah, exactly, exactly,
And then everybody just writes it off as like, oh no, they're messing around, or that was made up, or they
yeah,
video photoshopped it, or who knows.
yeah,
But
exactly,
it's one of those things that, I mean, if it was a production, that was pretty neat. It was like, if I'm going to
yeah,
tell a lie, I'm going to tell a big one.
yeah,
I'm going
right,
to have a 7-foot alien walking
yeah,
across a mall,
yeah,
and I know
exactly,
exactly where that happened. That's on the bay.
insane.
But in Pennsylvania, there's I'm trying to like not what other no, I'm thinking is in New Jersey. What I isn't what's another famous asylum that's out there in Pennsylvania? Is
Oh,
it Penhurst?
yeah, Penhurst out in Philly. Yep.
Yes,
That's
yes.
yeah, that's not too far from here. Yeah, yeah, Penhurst, and that's a good one. They're changing that into a. I guess they're making that into some other thing now. I think they're still going to keep it like the attractions, but they're going to do something else. That's what I heard anyway. But yeah, I mean, there's so many stories out here. It's
Oh,
incredible.
yes. All right,
But
some of them.
yeah,
And it's really funny. The other day when you told me that story about this gentleman, that the foundation that he finds this tunnel.
yeah,
The other day I'm doing some research and this was in North Dakota. There's a guy. He by the way, he lives by himself. He's a recluse. He's known as being a miser, but he was doing well enough that he got a lot of money. And his neighbors, they were saying, well, every once in a while he would go out, you know, riding his horse at night screaming. But okay, so back then, you were eccentric. But one day he gets in his head that all the women in town are out to marry him. Okay. Bottom line, he must have really that they put him away. They took him. I can't remember what's the name of. I think it was in Jamestown or something. There's usually was a
uh,
big asylum, state asylum.
yeah, yeah.
Away he goes. As a matter of fact, he lived there like 6 or 8 years, and he died.
Wow.
Fast forward, his farmhouse gets sold. They're excavating. Guess what they find under the floorboard? 6 skeletons. And nobody. And this is the thing. They realized under like 3 years after he died, I guess it was finally sold. They brought some floorboards, and later on they realized he had loosened the foundations and he stuck them in there. And the thing is, nobody knows who they are. A neighbor said, "We don't." He's at the beginning. They thought when they found them that it was like transient workers that he like brought over to work for him, and then he
Wow.
did away with them. But then they realized, and they say, no, it's a man and a woman with 3 kids. And then
Jeez.
separately, a male. They're asking all the neighbors, and they're like, no, there was never any family there, even a house. Who are these people? Mystery, never found out who are these people that he killed. Oh, they were all you could tell they all had received blows on their skull, which is this was a
Wow.
murder. It wasn't like oh
That's
yeah. they, like a disease or something, all these people were murdered.
Wow.
Nobody finds out. That's why I'm saying it's so fascinating. Sometimes what you find when we were talking about some of these places where you least expect it,
Oh yeah,
you get
totally.
really unusual phenomena happening as far as the paranormal is concerned.
Oh, yeah.
And then
That's
you
because
ask somebody, well, what's the history? And they'll say, well, no, nothing. No, nobody ever got murdered. Nobody ever got anything. But they've got some phenomena going on. And it's that you get stuff like that. You get a tunnel or dead bodies under
oh
the
yeah.
floorboards,
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's
you
that's
know?
yeah.
And
So how
that's
are we doing
those are
on
to
time?
me are the best investigations, though, to be
How
honest
are
with
we
you.
doing on time?
We are good. As we can go whenever you want. You want to
Okay.
keep going?
I'm good. I'm good. I actually probably have to go because we're about an hour right now.
Yes, yes. But let me ask you, so what's your next project then right now? Are you going to be doing any cryptid stuff
Oh
or any
yeah.
location that you're going to?
Yeah, we're going to be doing a follow-up with the Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens,
Okay.
in New Jersey
Mhm.
Pine Barrens, and then um, we're working on this Vampa Museum. We're making into a series, which is
Okay.
I just booked a haunted winery, so
Okay.
that's going to be good. Then I've got a haunted inn and jazz club up in Connecticut that we're working on. So I'm
Okay.
going to be doing that in May, and then on top of that, I'm gigging with my quartet. It's crazy. So it's
Wow.
all good.
Let me
But
ask you something. As a
I wanted,
musician, have you ever thought you channeled? Because I hear a lot of musicians sometimes say at certain moments they channel performances or
oh
music.
yeah, it's funny you say that. I always think that sometimes I channel Dave Brubeck, you know,
Really?
and
Okay.
because
Okay.
there's some things and I'm like, wow, I've never played that before, but there
Okay.
it is,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, no, that's amazing. And yeah, and I wanted to say that to your listeners too, they could look at Eric Mintel Investigates on YouTube and
Okay.
check. They want some mind-numbing entertainment. There you go. You could check it out.
Okay.
But we've got some great, great videos. I mean, and everything under the sun from ghosts, Bigfoot, Dogman, UFOs, you name it. Um,
Right.
and just some of the stuff that we've encountered is just mind-blowing. So it's I've been I know we've got a busy season. We're going to be busy this year. So we're
Yes.
really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Okay, I will put a link to your website on YouTube on the credits of the show.
I
Again,
appreciate
thank you so much, Eric. It has been
it.
absolutely
Marlene.
wonderful to speak.
Thank you so much. Really, very. I wish these were all this easy.
No, exactly. And I'll be contacting so you can come back and I'll be following
Yeah,
your work so
that would be
we can
great.
come back and you can tell me about your investigations and what you guys are up to.
Well, hopefully we'll come down to Florida too, and we'll do some
Yes.
investigating down there.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Let
So
me know. I know a lot
absolutely,
of people. I've been doing this for a long time. I know a lot of people all over. If you ever need any help with anything,
that
let
would
me
be
know in
phenomenal.
Florida, especially, and I
Okay,
will. Okay.
you got it. You got absolutely. Thank you
Take
so much. I
care.
really appreciate it.
Likewise. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
I love it. I love it. A jazz player, and he's a paranormal enthusiast. And you know what? I'm not kidding. It's so funny because when he's telling me he's tinkling away on the piano at the age of 3, I'll tell you what. My mom paid for those piano classes because it was like, oh, I want you to learn. It's like, okay. And I liked it, but it was like, that you got to practice an hour and you got to practice the scales and you got to do this and you got to do that. And I'm telling you, it was like, yeah, I did it. And supposedly, the more advanced you get, like in any instrument, it's not only the piano, any instrument, you got to practice more. Hello, your pieces are more complicated. In the case of a piano, your dexterity, your positions on in other words, you got to practice. And I'm not talking 30 minutes here. And I remember my my poor teacher is like, I couldn't grow my nails. And when you're a teenage girl, it's like, I can't grow my nails. What? Afterwards you're thinking, what's the big deal? But my point being that when you really, that is your passion, which is what it sounds like it is for him. No, that sounds like it is. Nobody has to tell you stuff like, no, you can't grow your nails or you have to practice, you know, hours, to every day. Every day. No such thing as a weekend either, by the way. Um, that's when you know that somebody has a passion for something, right? And like he said that he took a year of lessons and here it was like, and it comes to the point and that's the thing, like towards the end, I was like, I was dreading my classes because the first thing that I would play, I would, My teacher would, she's a poor lady, she rests in peace. She'd look at me, she goes, "You haven't practiced. I can tell you haven't practiced." And I was like, "Oh," you know? And of course, when my mom would pick me up, she would like, it's like when you're not, when it's not your thing, it is not your thing. It is not your thing. It's like nobody can make it your thing. And your mama is like, it's not my. What's really funny though, the piano. My mom got that piano when I started piano classes when I was 8 years old. It was a Nabi, which is it was a pretty decent piano. Would you believe that I dragged that piano around for like 40 years, even though I wasn't playing? I took it with me every time I moved. I took it with me. I finally, I went ahead and I gave it away. Basically I donated it. So I can't remember if it was a church or some place that needed a piano, and I donated it. I've been dragging that thing around for 40 years. I couldn't get rid of it. It was like, something into me is like, okay, Marlene, you might have taken piano lessons, but you are not a pianist. Yeah, I can read music. I can, even now, after so many years, I can play the piano if I had to, but no, you're not a pianist. But it's incredible though, that yes, you can have those also. I understand that what he talks about the paranormal and investigating and having all these experiences, because that is how, again, that you're willing to go out there. Because I'm not doing it that often anymore because I do a lot of consulting behind the scenes. I just don't talk about it because a lot of the consulting that I get from groups or people across the country are like, "Please, Marlene, you're not going to talk about this, right?" And it's like, as a matter of fact, that's why I get a lot of calls. Sometimes talking about sensitive stuff, whether it's depends on what it is. It could be the family or the situation, or even other people that they've got in the group, or I get a lot of calls also about when they have when whoever's there, if they know how to recognize that there's just something really dark. I've done research for some people. I'll do real good research, or something dark, or in some cases when they need somebody to speak Spanish to them, I'll do that. I'll help with that. But anyway, yeah, but a lot of the stuff I don't talk about it because I don't talk about it, especially when you're told, please keep this to yourself. You know what? A lot of these investigations, they, contrary to what you see, like in the shows, especially if the family's been enduring it for some time, it can wreak havoc in a family, or within a family or person or the couple or whatever. It can, to the point where a lot of things happen where people like want to keep that confidential, obviously. But that, like and I've said it before, when I was participating more actively in investigations, that I would do my pre-interview with people. Yeah, I would hear a lot of things. You can tell these people, like, I would tell them, please tell me the truth. I'm not going to say anything. I just want to help you. You asked me to come out here to help you. But if you don't tell me exactly what's going on here, I can't help you, because I'm going to be losing a lot of time trying to figure this out. And after a while, you got a sixth sense. And it's not really a sixth sense. It's just as you grow older, you get to know people or personalities better. That I realized when something was being held back. Okay, one of two reasons. Number one, the haunting or the experiences had a darker or more malevolent slant to them. And they were almost afraid of telling the paranormal group that was going out there, hey, they were afraid that people would go, no, I'm not going out there. That, and or this was sometimes things that people, in some cases, didn't even tell their better half or their family, dabbling in the occult many years before. Just weird stuff, or being in places they shouldn't be. And after a while, when you talk to people, you tell them, look. And by the way, by this time, they're really scared. They're really scared because they've got something going on in their home that they realize I can't ignore it. It's not going to go away. I can't sage it away. That, you tell them, help me help you. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of times I heard things that you could tell these people have been, I would say, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm glad you told me because it helps us go in the right direction with this. Even though, again, even though I was told things, I would never assume that was the source of whatever was happening there. I'm not saying that the person was lying, but I never said, oh, that definitely. I always left the door open as to what else. And, but I told them, I'm not going to say anything, but at some point, you might need to tell your wife, husband, whatever, this, it's up to you, but you might need to come clean with them about this. People were you'd be surprised what secrets people keep from their partners, their spouses, even their rest of their family, their kid. You'd be surprised some of the stuff they keep. And it's really funny because you always think, somebody's going to keep a secret. It's got to be something like, oh, really horrible. Like, I was a bank robber in my youth or something like that, no, but something along these lines where, I was a hellraiser or I was a Satanist at one time, or I was doing this, and maybe stupid stuff that you do when you're young, or just stupid, plain stupid, and then either you get scared out of it, or you grow up and you're like, what a waste of time, or whatever. The worst are the ones that they leave that lifestyle or the people they're hanging out with because they get scared. They see something, they witness something that says, I'm out of here. That's it. Here's my black cloak. Here it is. Yeah, if I use my pentacle and my pentagram, yeah, keep it. Here it is. All right. And they try to forget, they don't ever want to admit even to themselves. But then when you start talking to them and you ask them, you'd be surprised how, and I've heard it on more than one occasion. Yeah, ever since I was involved in that, yeah, I stayed away from it. I don't do it. But ever since then, there was something that I felt was still with me from when I was participating in those events. All right. Not all the time, but they almost felt like I can't get far enough away from this that I know, like, in other words, maybe, what, and some people were, and I know that in some cases people would tell me stories that was the light version of what happened. It was, oh, I saw this, or when they did this and that, but they always make themselves like I'm the observer. I was standing in the back of the room kind of deal. When in reality, I was like, I have a feeling you were not standing in the back of the room. I think you were right in the front row, or you were an actual participant in it. But you know what? When you're trying to help somebody in a paranormal investigation, you don't want to make somebody say you're a liar. I know that this is not from somebody that was there just observing. No. And like I said, I've told everybody, some of these things, they will rear its ugly head sometimes years later. Years later, people get really, how can I say, malevolent type of paranormal events around them years later. And like I said, along the way here, this happens, that happens. They'll go through some months of weird nightmares, or they'll go through a month of where they all hear strange sounds in their house, things being moved around. Then it goes away. Then sometimes months, sometimes years go by, things come back. And then after a while, they realize it's a different house, and they still kind of getting. And then all of a sudden, and to be honest with you, I really don't know what is the catalyst. For some reason, then all of a sudden, everything goes and just goes. And they're like, where did this come from? How did this happen? What? New house, or this old house we've been living here? Nothing. I don't know. I don't know what kicks it off. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's stress, or sometimes it's a lot of things. It depends. And there you go. And then when you start talking and asking this person, it's like, oh, yeah, 15, 20 years ago, I was involved with this. Or, and I've heard this, by the way, which is a cautionary tale. People that they knew, friends, or I've heard either friends, people that they were, or even that they kind of hung out with, were into some of the stuff. And at some point, they thought it was cool. And the friendship has kind of like ended it abruptly, or how can I say, not in friendly terms. And this once upon a time, your friend person put a curse on you or did something or whatever. And a friend, I've even heard of roommates, people that have access to stuff that's yours, a personal belonging, your hair, anything that they could do a mega duper whooper curse on you. They have part of you. Okay. And that's why you even have one of the things that that people don't realize, that which is, well, that they have also your full name, because anybody that does this, that they don't realize that to do some of this work, these especially these curse, hex, whatever you want to call it, not only, the more powerful it is that they know what is your full name. As in, if you're married, let's say a woman, what is your maiden name? Because that's what they consider your real name. Your first, middle. If you can get somebody's first, middle, and last name, let me tell you something. This is like putting the red neon arrow on you, going, that person, that person, that person. So that's what I'm saying. When you have people that are around you, whether it was a friend or a roommate that has access to this information about you, okay, forget the nickname. Nicknames don't mean crap. If they know your full name, including your middle name, the middle name that nobody knows, yeah. That's why, again, you pick and choose your company, I guess, is the moral of this story. Pick and choose your company, especially, this goes without saying, especially if this person you know or suspect is involved in occult rituals. And I've even heard of people that say, well, yeah, this person, yeah, when we hung out or we were friends or they were my roommate or whatever. Now, the once upon a time, I know they were into some weird stuff and they did that, but by the time they had left it, they weren't doing any of that. You want to see somebody revert back to the dark side? Have that person get mad at you, especially when it's a breakup. Or that person, hey, you told them, hey, I need you to move out because whatever. And they think you did them wrong. You want to see people go back to the old dark ways just to put a curse on your butt, on your ass? That'll do it. And then that person was like, no, man, they told me that once upon a time they did some stupid shit. But I'd be like, yeah, sure, all right. And how was the end of that relationship? Oh no, we had a fight, or I asked this person to move out, or she caught me cheating, or he was stalking me, and I put an injunction on him, whatever. One of those bad breakup or get out of my life deals. I'll tell you something. That's when people pull out their old what is it, grimoires, or they call their, hey, I need to, because see, this is the thing, especially in situations like this where people feel powerless. Like, this person, if they perceive it as you did something wrong against them, whether it was, like I said, landlord, you ask a roommate to move out, love, God, let's not go there. And there's really nothing you can do in the material world. Somebody breaks up with you, or somebody tells you, hey, you got to move out, or whatever. What are you going to do? Be mad? Yeah. And then there's people that they're going to have the last word. And if they've ever had any experience or knowledge or know of people that will do this type of work of dark rituals, you better believe that not all the time, but if they have to, they resort to that, because they cannot think that you, and I'm saying you, as in, can get away with that. Like, no, you did me wrong, whatever the wrong is, perceived or real or whatever. And I'm going to fix your wagon. Oh, you think you're going to ride off into the sunset and be all happy? Oh, hey, when you kicked me out, you told me I had to leave. out of the, let's say, a roommate scenario. Well, guess what? By the way, this also works even in I've had it scenarios even with businesses, smaller businesses. Usually when it's a bigger business and the higher ups, like the HR department or the big bosses that make decisions, they're like, nah, that's more difficult. But when you get a smaller, either family owned or mom and pop kind of business, you'd be surprised what some of these employees will do. Okay. Because especially, and by the way, this has nothing to do with that. Let's say a boss is justified in firing you. Like you brought on yourself, like, maybe you weren't doing good work, you wouldn't show up. There's people, I'm not saying everybody, but there's some people that in their head, they never see, like, I brought this on myself. If I was my boss, I'd have fired me too. They never get there. They always see themselves as the victim. I was wronged and I'm going to, and I've had, investigations where it's a haunted business location. And again, when you start doing the research and you start talking to people, and I mean, people, I said either one, they have found some type of, what do you want to call it? Fetishes or ritual objects hidden. They've found them, like, when you have the drop ceiling in some businesses, they have found stuff, drop ceilings, or they have found them in buckets in the closet behind the room where the storage place where nobody goes. They find stuff there, and some they have already found it. Or, hey, you guys, shh, be quiet. Or, you will start asking them about certain things, and then they start looking because they never really like. And then we ask them, well, when did this start happening? All this. Did you have any problems with anybody? But because, by the way, after a while, that's one of the things you develop when you're an investigator. Around that time, because you're always trying to find what is the point of origin of this? What is the catalyst? What set this off? Oh no, I had this guy I had to fire. Yeah, what happened? Anything else about this person? Well, he's kind of a weird guy. Whatever. Sometimes it's nothing. It's just a weird employee that's disgruntled because they got fired. Hello, nobody likes to get fired. But you'd be surprised sometimes when people start talking, I'd be like, and what did you see? What were they wearing? What was and I would tell them, you know what? Do you have any places, storage closets, areas that normally you don't go, that somebody wanted to hide something, they could hide it there? And you see people like, they stop and you can tell they're like, eh. They'd be like, what? Well, okay, put that. Not all the time, but you'd be surprised the calls we would get back, like, oh my God, do you know what I found? I found this. I found this in the closet. I found this in a shelf. I found this behind the whatever, the place that, that where I keep my office supplies. Yeah. I go, really? Yeah, all right. And for those people, there is such, how I'm sure everybody's heard of beginner's luck. There's people that, I'm going to go with a disgruntled employee scenario, but this could work with anybody's disgruntled with you, that they really don't know what they're doing. They really don't have anybody that's in that, but they're kind of dark little souls. So they run off and they get a book. And they look through it, or they look, well, nowadays, forget the book part. You could go on the internet and they look up, they type in the right search, and somebody tells them, hey, this is what you do to get your boss or to get the company or whatever. You'd be surprised how many people that don't know what they're doing actually do stuff that produces results. Okay, let's say, again, let's go to that scenario with the business. It's like, oh, besides weird stuff going on, and all of a sudden my business took a nosedive, or machinery's gets broke. Like, in other words, stuff breaks up. I'm saying, you can't get paranoid, but they themselves, especially if they've been running the business for a while, you kind of know the ebb and flow of your business, and okay, I know certain machinery, it's either going to get maintenance or it's going to break down or I got to replace it. You get it. You get a rhythm. You don't want it to happen, but you understand stuff breaks down. But they themselves will tell you, no, man, everything breaks down. All my machinery or whatever it is that I use breaks down. I've had these mishaps, pipes break. And it's not in and of itself isolated, these scenarios. But they'll tell me, it's like, okay, it's like I can't catch a break. Stuff keeps happening. And my money is being used up fixing all of a sudden, out of the blue repairs, that I'm experiencing. All right. And let's face it, if you work for somebody and you really want to get them, the way to get them is to basically harm your money flow. If it's not to keep customers away, it's to eat up your money with stupid stuff. And like I said, you'd be surprised. People that are inexperienced will just read something and they're very focused and they do something and voila, there you have. And sometimes you even will get those that will open a portal, and then that's where, like I said, it's not just a run of bad luck, it's that you have actual paranormal phenomena. And I'm going to say this again. Usually when you have somebody that has done, I don't know if you want to call it a curse, a hex, whatever, spell, whatever, I don't care what you want to call it, and it's on the dark side, goes without, you might not, the person that did this might not have done any invocation for a dark spirit or anything, but it's like you're going to get one with you. You're going to get it. They might never have intended that, but once somebody does that type of work, that's why sometimes you'll have the phenomena, whether it's a poltergeist kind of stuff, just weird. It's just not the thing. It's like people will say, man, the all of a sudden I have like a dark feeling, or the cold spots. They'll hear things. They'll even sometimes see shadow people, and they'll be like, where? And it's like part and parcel. Like somebody did that whatever, maybe they left something there, and part of the phenomena is spiritual turbulence, negative spiritual turbulence. And then that's why you have these people that call you and go, I don't understand what's happening. And my logic has been fighting with me for the last 6 or 8 months, but I know something's up. Help. Help. Yeah. Yes. By this, I don't mean to say, because I don't want, there's people that think that when certain things go wrong, it's like somebody did some bad luck or something. No, sometimes things go wrong, and sometimes things go wrong. It's like, okay, like when you're having a bad day, bad hair day, the engine light on your vehicle turns on. It's like something else. It's like, wow, I get to work late. What I'm saying is sometimes we go through these little periods of things go wrong and they straighten themselves out. When you have people that are doing something for months, it's like, okay, forget it. The odds on this is not normal. All right. And like I said, why people, like, I don't talk about those things, because most of the time people are, contrary to what people see in all these shows, most people that really, really, really got something serious going on, they don't want to talk about it. I mean, they don't want to talk about it as in anybody know about it. Okay, can you imagine also if you were running a business where it's got out that you either, I'm not going to say Ghostbusters, because it's not really ghost busting. In a way, it's paranormal investigators are visiting you because you think that something's going on and you're just not exactly sure what it is. Yeah, because this is the thing, if you're a millionaire and let's say you hire a feng shui artist to design the entrance to your new business building, everybody's like, oh, that's so avant-garde. You want the right energy to flow in and out. But when you're a normal run-of-the-mill mom and pop, you don't want to buy, even your employees. Can you imagine, because a lot of times your employees are the first ones that tip you off. Hey, something's going on. I don't know what it is. Or that, hey, you've got somebody coming in there to address it from a supernatural angle. Nah, most people is like, you're not going to talk about this, right? I don't have to worry. It's like, nah, don't worry. But yeah, things like that happen. Which, by the way, getting back to what Eric was originally talking about, contrary to what people think, you can have weird, unusual paranormal events take place anywhere for any reason. It doesn't always have to be the spirit of the guy that used to live here that died, or the guy that buried the people under his house. It could be some type of occult ritual that was done either to the property or against the people that live or work there, or stuff like that. Okay, that can also be the source. All right, that you'll have, people will do research and they'll be like, man, I don't know. Or is that new property? Or no, there's nothing about the land, nothing about the property, nothing about the family. We can't figure out what it is. But something's going on. Sometimes it's you get somebody that, for lack of a better word, trying to curse them or hex them or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, guys, I hope you liked the show with Eric. I'm going to put, again, the link to his YouTube channel on the credits of the show. Check it out. He sounds like he's got great programs going on. He's got a lot of interesting stuff. Also, don't forget to sign up for my Substack newsletter on mpellicer.com, miamighostchronicles.com. My Substack articles, I get, like older shows, podcast articles that I'm writing. Like I said, right now, I'm writing one on, which I think is really fascinating, how the Pennsylvania Dutch, how they have the powwows. It was this tradition of, like, it was healing. They used it for healing, like a folklore type of healing, but at the same time, they really believed, like seriously believed about hexes and curses and, like that if somebody did something against you, that they would call them a witch. Like, this is not like, oh, that the weird guy that believes in that. This was a very strong belief in that community. So much so that it was like, if anybody got a whiff of it, it was like, oh. And everybody, and how can I say it? And it was almost like that could catch. So everybody, if the word got out, something is going on with so-and-so, it'd be like, what? So yeah, I'm doing that now. I'm writing that article. So anyway, guys, again, I have a lot of interesting guests lined up. And pretty soon I'm going to be, as a matter of fact, bringing in people for season 16. You guys got to be quiet. And then pretty soon, because I've got a lot of interesting people coming on. A lot. I've got some great guests coming on. You're going to really like it. So come back. Again, thank you for spending this time with me. You are all wonderful. Till next time, take care.